The massive alien ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning, sliding into Earth's orbit with a grace that belied its enormous size. Its hull gleamed like polished silver under Earth's sun, stretching nearly 2 miles from end to end. The news spread across the globe within minutes, and humanity held its collective breath. Ambassador James Walker stood at the New York spaceport, his gray suit pristine and his posture relaxed despite the historic weight of the moment. Around him, the welcoming committee tried their best to appear calm, but their nervous energy was obvious. This wasn't just first contact. This was humanity's official introduction to the Galactic Council. 10 minutes to touchdown, announced a voice over the intercom. Walker checked his watch, a simple gesture that helped hide his smile. The council had sent ahead very specific instructions about their arrival, including their expectations for a proper welcome. What they hadn't mentioned, and what Earth scientists had quickly noticed, was that their landing craft was using significant thrust just to manage a controlled descent in Earth's gravity. The council's shuttle appeared in the sky, its engines glowing much brighter than necessary for a craft its size. It landed with a heavy thud rather than the graceful touchdown its design suggested. Walker made a mental note. Their visitors were already struggling with Earth's conditions. The landing ramp extended, and Walker watched with practiced diplomatic patience. First came the security drones, floating devices that scanned the area. Then emerged the council representatives themselves. The main delegate, who had introduced himself in earlier communications as High Speaker, was the first to appear. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, with silvery skin and long, graceful limbs. Behind him came 4 other alien species, each unique but sharing one common trait. They all moved with visible effort against Earth's gravity. "Welcome to Earth," Walker said, stepping forward with his hand placed formally over his heart, the greeting gesture the council had insisted upon. "We are honored by your presence." The High Speaker's large, multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly. His breathing was slightly labored, though he tried to hide it. He paused, his translator taking a moment to process. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Council." Walker noticed the slight tremor in the alien's limbs. The council representatives had been so insistent on handling all the arrival protocols, they'd dismissed Earth's suggestions about gravity adaptation. Now, standing in Earth's natural 1G environment, their discomfort was obvious. "Please, let us move to the reception area," Walker offered, gesturing toward the nearby building. "We've prepared refreshments and a place to rest." He deliberately didn't mention that the building had been specially equipped with gravity controls for their comfort. The aliens moved carefully, each step measured. One of them, a being with iridescent scales, was visibly sweating, or whatever their species equivalent was. Their protective suits, which they'd insisted were merely formal wear, were clearly working hard to compensate for Earth's atmospheric pressure. Inside the reception area, the relief on their faces was immediate as the gravity adjusted to their preferred 0.6 G. Walker watched with hidden amusement as they tried to maintain their air of superiority while clearly grateful for the reprieve. "We must discuss humanity's integration into the greater galactic community," the High Speaker announced, trying to regain his authoritative tone. "There are many standards and protocols to be established." "Of course," Walker replied smoothly. "But first, please, make yourselves comfortable. We have so much to learn from each other." The human ambassador watched as the council representatives arranged themselves around the conference table, their movements now more fluid in the reduced gravity. They had come expecting to find another primitive species to guide and control. Instead, they were already struggling just to stand on humanity's homeworld. Walker's assistant leaned close to his ear. "Sir, should we tell them about the gravity?" "No need," Walker whispered back. "Let them think this is normal for us. After all, they didn't ask." As the first official meeting between humanity and the Galactic Council began, Walker couldn't help but notice how the aliens kept glancing nervously at the humans in the room. Humans who moved with easy confidence, even as the artificial gravity shifted, humans who seemed completely unaffected by conditions that had the mighty council representatives struggling to maintain their composure. This, Walker knew, was just the beginning. The council had come to Earth expecting to find primitives in need of guidance. They were about to learn some very interesting lessons about humanity instead. 3 days after their arrival, the council representatives gathered in the United Earth Conference Center. The gravity was still set to their preferred 0.6 G, but they couldn't hide their unease at being on Earth. Through the massive windows, they could see New York's towering buildings reaching into the clouds, a sight that seemed to make them increasingly nervous. Ambassador Walker sat calmly at the conference table, flanked by General Roberts and Dr. Miller, Earth's leading experts in defense and science. The High Speaker stood at the front of the room, his silvery skin reflecting the morning light as he activated a holographic display. "We have reviewed your civilization's current status," the High Speaker began, his translator creating perfect English. "The Council has prepared a list of integration requirements that all new species must follow." Walker noticed how the alien emphasized the word must. He kept his face neutral, but internally, he was already analyzing their behavior. The council representatives kept glancing at the human delegation's easy posture and relaxed breathing, while they themselves needed regular breaks due to Earth's atmospheric pressure. "Please proceed," Walker said politely. The High Speaker activated the first holographic page. Requirement 1. All human military activities must be limited to the Sol system. Any expansion beyond your home system requires council approval. General Roberts raised an eyebrow but remained silent. Requirement 2. The High Speaker continued. All human technological advancements must be shared with the Council for review and approval before implementation. Dr. Miller wrote something in her notebook, her pen moving with deliberate slowness. Requirement 3. Earth must accept Council monitors at all major military and research facilities. The list went on, each requirement more restrictive than the last. The Council wanted control over human population expansion, technological development, and even the types of ships humans could build. As the High Speaker read through the demands, Walker noticed something interesting. Fear. It was subtle, but it was there in the way the alien's fingers trembled slightly when mentioning human military capabilities. Furthermore, the High Speaker said, reaching the end of his list, all human colonies must maintain Council-approved environmental conditions. Your species' habit of settling in extreme environments is concerning. Walker smiled gently. The Council had discovered that humans were already building bases on Mars and had mining operations on Venus's upper atmosphere. What they didn't know yet was that these were considered simple starter projects by human standards. These requirements are, of course, non-negotiable, the High Speaker concluded. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years through strict adherence to these protocols. The room fell silent. The Council representatives looked expectantly at the human delegation, clearly waiting for signs of submission, or at least worry. Instead, Ambassador Walker calmly poured himself a glass of water. "That's quite a comprehensive list," Walker said, his voice pleasant. "We'll need time to review these requirements carefully. Though I do have one question. What exactly do you consider an extreme environment?" One of the other council members, a being with crystalline features, spoke up. "Your Mars colony exists in conditions that would kill most sentient species. The pressure, the radiation, the temperature variations. It's completely unsuitable for civilization." Walker shared a knowing look with Dr. Miller. "I see," he said. "And these conditions, they're considered extreme by Council standards." "By any standards," the crystalline being insisted. "The fact that your species can even survive there is." The alien paused, seemingly realizing he might have said too much. "We'll need 72 hours to review these requirements," Walker said, standing smoothly. The Council representatives shifted uneasily as the humans moved with perfect ease despite the altered gravity. "In the meantime, perhaps you'd like to tour one of our training facilities. It might help you understand our environmental adaptability. The High Speaker's multifaceted eyes darted between the other council members. That won't be necessary. We await your formal acceptance of the requirements. As the council representatives filed out of the room, General Roberts leaned close to Walker. They have no idea, do they? Walker watched the aliens' careful movements, their obvious relief as they headed back to their gravity-controlled quarters. No, he said quietly, but they're starting to suspect. Did you notice how they classified Mars as an extreme environment? Dr. Miller smiled. Wait until they find out about our deep-sea colonies. The human delegation gathered their materials, already planning their response to the council's demands. They would be polite, of course, professional, diplomatic. But as Walker watched the council representatives struggle with something as simple as walking in Earth's gravity, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity wouldn't be following anyone else's rules about where they could and couldn't live. After all, you don't become a spacefaring civilization by letting a little thing like unsuitable conditions stop you. The Council's research vessel hung in orbit around Earth, its laboratories buzzing with frantic activity. Chief Researcher had been studying human biological data for the past week, and with each new discovery, the anxiety among the science team grew stronger. This can't be correct, the Chief Researcher muttered, his crystalline appendages trembling as he reviewed the latest findings. Run the tests again. The laboratory's main screen displayed various human biological metrics. Around him, the research team worked at their stations, each new piece of data adding to their growing concern. Sir, one of the junior researchers called out, I've finished analyzing their physical endurance data. A human can. They can pursue prey for days. The chief researcher moved to the junior station, his movements jerky with stress. The display showed footage of human marathon runners, persistence hunters, and military training exercises. The numbers didn't make sense. No sentient species should be able to keep moving for so long. Look at their thermal regulation, another researcher noted. They don't just endure heat, they adapt to it. And their ability to recover from injury. The chief researcher watched footage of human healing processes, broken bones knitting together, torn muscles rebuilding, even damaged organs regenerating to some degree. Most species in the council would be permanently crippled by injuries that humans considered minor inconveniences. An alert flashed on the main screen. The latest analysis of Earth's geological data had finished processing. The chief researcher felt his crystalline structure vibrate with shock as he read the results. This planet, he stammered. It's a death world. The research team froze. Death worlds were the stuff of scientific nightmares. Planets with such harsh conditions that they should be impossible to evolve on, let alone inhabit. High gravity, extreme atmospheric pressure, wildly varying temperatures, dangerous levels of oxygen, and constant tectonic activity. Earth had all of these. Sir, one of the senior researchers approached with a new data tablet. You need to see their physical capability tests. The video showed standard council strength assessments being performed by human subjects. The humans had been polite about it, following all testing protocols. But the results were terrifying. Even the weakest human test subject could exert force that would crush most council species. Their grip strength alone could break bones. Their pursuit predators, someone whispered. Look at their eye placement, their thermal regulation, their endurance. They evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The chief researcher started compiling an emergency report for the council. As he worked, more data kept pouring in. Humans could survive radiation levels that would kill most species. They could repair DNA damage from radiation exposure. Their bones were incredibly dense due to their high-gravity environment. They could eat foods that would poison other species. Their blood could clot to prevent them from bleeding out. They could survive the loss of entire limbs. They could regulate their body temperature in extreme conditions. Have you seen their sleep patterns? One researcher asked, voice shaking. They can go days without real rest. They just keep going. The chief researcher added another note to his report. Humans didn't enter standard hibernation cycles like most species. Instead, they underwent short periods of unconsciousness called sleep, and could even adapt these patterns to their needs. "Sir," a junior researcher called out, "I found something about their social structures. When they're threatened, they don't scatter like rational beings. They group together. They organize. They plan." The implications were horrifying. Most species evolved to flee from danger. Humans had evolved to face it head-on, together. The chief researcher finished his report with trembling appendages. The council had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed humans were like other spacefaring races, beings who had evolved on gentle worlds and used technology to overcome their biological limitations. But humans were different. They hadn't needed technology to overcome their limitations. They had evolved without limitations. Their technology wasn't a crutch. It was an enhancement to abilities that were already terrifying. Just then, a message came through from Earth. The humans had finished reviewing the Council's integration requirements. They wanted to arrange a demonstration of their physical capabilities before giving their response. The chief researcher looked at his team, all of them processing the same thought. The Council hadn't found a new species to guide. They had awakened an apex predator. "Send my report to the High Speaker," he ordered. "Mark it as urgent. The Council needs to know what we're dealing with before that demonstration." But deep down, he knew it was already too late. The Council's attempts at intimidation had already set events in motion, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the mighty Galactic Council was about to learn what fear felt like. The Council delegation shifted uncomfortably in their gravity-adjusted seats at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado. They had arrived expecting to intimidate the humans with a display of advanced weapons. Instead, Ambassador Walker had invited them to what he called a friendly athletic demonstration. "Let's begin with something simple," Walker said, gesturing to the indoor track where a human athlete waited. "This is just a basic training exercise." The High Speaker watched through multifaceted eyes as the human began running. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 30. The human kept running, maintaining a steady pace that seemed impossible. "How?" one of the council members whispered. "How are they not stopping?" Walker smiled. "Oh, this is just a warm-up. Would any of your species like to join in?" The council representatives quickly declined, their expressions showing a mix of horror and fascination. They had received the chief researcher's report just hours earlier, but seeing human capabilities in person was entirely different. "Let's move on to strength demonstrations," Walker suggested. They watched as human athletes performed what humans considered basic weightlifting exercises. The council's scientific advisor frantically took notes as humans lifted weights that would crush most species. The mighty council representatives, who had arrived ready to showcase their superior technology, found themselves shrinking back in their seats. "This is unusual," the High Speaker managed to say. "Surely these are your enhanced warriors." Walker laughed softly. "No, these are just regular athletes. Would you like to see our military training now?" Before the High Speaker could respond, the demonstration area changed. A group of human soldiers appeared, moving through what they called an obstacle course. The council watched in stunned silence as the humans climbed ropes using only their upper body strength, crawled through mud under electrified wire, swam through cold water carrying heavy equipment, jumped over walls twice their height, carried wounded companions on their backs, operated complex weapons while running, fought hand-to-hand in various combat styles. "This is standard training," General Roberts explained, joining them in the observation area. "Nothing special." One of the council members, the one with crystalline features, seemed to be trembling. "You mean all your warriors train like this?" "Warriors?" Roberts looked confused. "These are just regular soldiers. Basic training." The council delegation huddled closer together as they watched humans demonstrate their basic capabilities. Every new display seemed more impossible than the last. Humans working in teams lifted objects that should have required powered assistance. They moved through environments that would kill most species. They showed coordination and strength that defied the Council's understanding of biology. Then came the final demonstration. This, Walker said, is what we call a marathon. It's a popular sporting event. The Council watched in horror as humans ran for hours. Not just one or two humans, but hundreds. They kept moving long after any reasonable species would have collapsed. Some of them were even smiling. Enough, the High Speaker finally said, raising a trembling hand. We understand. Walker's smile remained pleasant. Oh, but we haven't shown you our special forces yet, or our emergency responders, or our exploration teams. That won't be necessary, the High Speaker said quickly. The other council members nodded frantically in agreement. As they prepared to leave, Walker handed them one final data pad. Here's something you might find interesting. Records of human exploration before we had modern technology. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We climbed the highest mountains with primitive gear. We explored the deepest parts of our oceans just to see what was there. The council representatives looked at the pad, then at each other. Their earlier arrogance had vanished completely. Ambassador Walker, the High Speaker said carefully, perhaps we should revise the integration requirements. Walker nodded, still smiling. Of course. But first, would you like to see how humans dance? It's fascinating. We do it for hours, just for fun. The look of pure terror on the council members' faces was answer enough. They had come to Earth expecting to find another species to control. Instead, they had found something that haunted their deepest genetic memories. A true apex predator that could outrun, outfight, and outlast anything in the galaxy. And the humans, it seemed, were just getting started. As the council delegation hurried back to their gravity-adjusted transport, Walker turned to General Roberts. Do you think we should tell them about extreme sports? Roberts grinned. Let's save something for the next meeting. After all, we wouldn't want to overwhelm our new friends. The High Speaker stood aboard the Council's flagship, trying to maintain his dignity as he prepared to deliver what he believed would be a devastating ultimatum to humanity. Behind him, a massive display showed the Council's gathered fleet. Over 300 ships positioned just beyond Mars' orbit. Patch me through to their government, he ordered. The communication screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Walker and several other human officials in what appeared to be a military command center. The humans looked remarkably calm, considering the fleet at their doorstep. This is your final warning, the High Speaker announced, his translator struggling to convey the proper level of menace. Accept the Council's authority, or face the consequences. Walker raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. We were about to contact you as well. He pressed a button on his desk. Perhaps you'd like to look a bit further out into our system. New data flooded the Council's sensors. Beyond their fleet, hidden in the asteroid belt, human ships began powering up. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Impossible, one of the Council commanders whispered. Our scans showed no such fleet. Oh, those are just our mining and exploration vessels, Walker explained casually. They're designed to work in what you call extreme conditions. Would you like to see our actual military ships? As if on cue, new signatures appeared. From behind Jupiter's moons, from Saturn's rings, from orbital stations around Mars, human warships emerged. Their design was different from anything the Council had seen. Bulkier, stronger, built to withstand conditions that would tear Council ships apart. You see, Walker continued, while you were busy trying to intimidate us, we decided to show you something interesting. Every ship you're seeing is crewed by normal humans. No special protection needed. They live and work in conditions your species considers lethal. The High Speaker's multifaceted eyes widened as the data poured in. The human ships weren't just surviving in the harsh space environment. They were thriving. Their crews could endure radiation levels, gravity changes, and pressure variations that would kill most Council species instantly. "That's not possible," he stammered. "Your species only achieved spaceflight recently." Walker smiled. "By your standards, yes. But you see, we didn't wait for perfect conditions. We didn't need them. Humans adapt. We started exploring space when our technology was still primitive by your standards. We sent people to our moon using computers less powerful than today's children's toys." The Council's tactical officer interrupted with alarming news. Deep space scans had detected human activity far beyond Sol system. Colonies on worlds the Council had deemed uninhabitable. Mining operations in asteroid fields that were supposed to be too dangerous to approach. "We tried to be polite," Walker said. "We listened to your demands. We smiled at your attempts at intimidation. But now it's time for honesty." His expression grew serious. "Your fleet is currently surrounded. Every ship you see out there can operate in conditions that would crush your vessels. Every crew member aboard those ships can survive exposure to space longer than your species can survive on Earth." The High Speaker felt his legs trembling. The mighty Council fleet, their show of force, now looked pathetically small compared to the human armada. "But here's what you don't understand," Walker continued. "We don't want to fight. We never did. Humanity doesn't need to prove its strength through violence. We'd rather explore, build, discover. We're willing to work with the Council as equals." Just then, another Council member burst onto the command deck with even more disturbing news. 3 different Council species had already approached human diplomatic channels, requesting protection agreements. They had seen the scans. They knew what humans could do. The High Speaker looked at his fleet, then at the human ships surrounding them. He thought about the Chief Researcher's report, about the demonstration at the training facility, about everything they'd learned about these terrifying beings who called themselves human. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "we should discuss new terms for cooperation." Walker nodded. "We'd like that. And while we talk, would you be interested in seeing some of our deep space exploration plans? We're preparing to send colonists to systems you marked as unsuitable for life." The High Speaker could only stare in amazement. The Council had ruled the galaxy through fear and intimidation for 10,000 years, but they had never encountered a species that had not just survived, but evolved in conditions that should have been impossible. They had never met humans before. "We'll withdraw our fleet," the High Speaker said quietly, "and we would be very interested in learning about your exploration plans." Behind him, on every screen, the human ships held their positions, a silent reminder that the galaxy's balance of power had just shifted dramatically. The Council's emergency session chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 200 species argued loudly as new information about humans appeared on the massive screens around them. The High Speaker stood at the central podium, trying to maintain order as report after report arrived. "Silence," he finally shouted, his translator amplifying his voice. "We must address the human situation." The chamber quieted, but the fear remained visible on every face. On the main screen, a map showed human expansion into what the Council had labeled as deadly zones, regions of space considered too dangerous for settlement. "The latest reports are concerning," the High Speaker began. "Humans have established mining operations in the radiation fields of the Carina Nebula. Images showed human mining ships working in clouds of deadly radiation. The crews seemed completely unconcerned about conditions that would kill most species instantly." "That's impossible," shouted one delegate. "Those areas are lethal." "Not to them," the chief researcher said, stepping forward. "We've analyzed their basic training programs. What they consider standard preparation exceeds our elite forces' capabilities." The screens changed to show human military exercises. Council species watched in horror as humans performed space walks with minimal protection, operated in high radiation environments, survived multiple gravity shifts, worked in extreme temperatures, continued functioning without rest for days. "Their colonization efforts are even more disturbing," the chief researcher continued. "They're actively terraforming worlds we marked as uninhabitable. New images appeared, showing human colonies on worlds that should have been impossible to live on. They weren't just surviving. They were building cities, growing food, establishing permanent settlements. How? Asked a crystalline delegate. How do they do this? They adapt, the chief researcher explained. Where we see impossible conditions, they see challenges to overcome. Their history is filled with examples. Before they had modern technology, they settled in deserts, Arctic regions, and deep jungles. They crossed oceans on wooden vessels. They climbed mountains without equipment. The chamber erupted again as a new report arrived. 3 more council species had requested human protection. They wanted humans to guard their trade routes and defend their colonies. You don't understand. The military advisor interrupted. Their basic training, what they call boot camp, it's more demanding than our special forces final tests. Their regular soldiers can outperform our best warriors. The High Speaker raised his hands for silence. We must decide how to proceed. The humans have already rejected our integration requirements. They've demonstrated military capabilities beyond our expectations. And now, our own member species are seeking their protection. Just then, Ambassador Walker appeared on the main screen, requesting to address the council. The chamber fell silent as his image filled the display. Honorable council members, Walker began, his calm voice somehow more terrifying than any threat. We've prepared a demonstration of our latest terraforming technology. Would you like to observe? The feed switched to show a barren, toxic world, one the council had marked as permanently unsuitable for life. As they watched, human ships descended into the poisonous atmosphere. Workers in what the council considered woefully inadequate protection suits began setting up equipment. This is a live feed, Walker explained. Over the next few months, you'll see how humans make hostile worlds habitable. We're willing to share this technology, by the way, as partners, not subjects. The council members looked at each other in growing realization. The humans weren't just powerful. They were reshaping the galaxy itself. One more thing, Walker added. We've noticed several distress calls from ships in the Outer Rim. Council ships won't go there because of the conditions, but we've already dispatched rescue teams. Human teams can survive there easily. The message was clear. While the council cowered from harsh conditions, humans rushed in to help. They weren't just stronger. They were becoming the galaxy's protectors. The human problem, the High Speaker said quietly, has become a human paradigm shift. The council members watched the screens, showing humans working in conditions that their species couldn't even survive in. They had thought to find a primitive race to control. Instead, they had discovered beings who could reshape worlds, survive anywhere, and were now becoming the galaxy's most reliable defenders. The realization was complete. The age of council dominance was over. The era of humanity had begun. 1 year after the council's failed attempt to intimidate Earth, the galaxy had changed more than anyone could have predicted. Ambassador Walker stood in the newly constructed Galactic Cooperation Center, built in orbit around Earth. The station was unique. Different sections maintained different gravities and atmospheres, allowing all species to move comfortably within their natural environments. Through the station's massive windows, Walker watched ships from dozens of species moving through space. Human vessels moved alongside them, their sturdy designs now a common and reassuring sight throughout the galaxy. The latest reports are in, his assistant said, handing him a datapad. Another 100 worlds previously marked as uninhabitable have been opened for settlement, thanks to human terraforming technology. Walker nodded, remembering how far they'd come. The Council's original demands now seemed almost laughable. Instead of limiting human expansion, the galaxy was actively seeking human help to expand into new territories. Ambassador, a voice called. Walker turned to see the High Speaker approaching through the gravity-adjusted corridor. The alien diplomat had learned to better handle Earth conditions, though he still moved carefully. 3 more rescue operations completed in the Outer Rim, the High Speaker reported. Human teams reached the stranded ships before anyone else could even attempt it. They saved over 1,000 lives. Walker smiled. This was what humanity had always been best at, not conquering, but helping. Their ability to survive in extreme conditions had made them the galaxy's most effective rescue workers and emergency responders. The main screen lit up with a new alert. A distant space station was experiencing critical failures in its life support systems. Before anyone could react, human response teams were already boarding their ships. They don't even wait to be asked anymore, the high speaker observed, his voice mixing awe and gratitude. That's who we are, Walker replied. When others are in danger, we help. It's what humans do. Around them, the station buzzed with activity. The new Galactic Cooperation Center had become everything the Council Chamber never was, a place where species work together as equals. Humans had insisted on this approach, refusing to simply take control despite their superior capabilities. In one section, human engineers taught other species how to build ships that could withstand extreme conditions. In another, human medical teams shared their knowledge of rapid healing and adaptation. Everywhere, humans worked alongside aliens, teaching, learning, and building together. The latest survey results are impressive, the high speaker said, showing Walker another report. Galactic trade has increased by 300% since human protection fleets began operating. Pirates and raiders have almost disappeared from major routes. Walker looked at the numbers. Human ships, able to operate in conditions that others found impossible, had made space travel safer than ever before. Their crews could pursue raiders into regions that other species couldn't enter, making them the perfect peacekeepers. And the new colonies? Walker asked. Thriving, the high speaker replied. Human terraforming techniques have opened up whole regions of space we thought would be forever uninhabitable. Species that were running out of room to expand now have new worlds to settle. A group of young aliens passed by, wearing training uniforms. They were part of the first class at the new Human Adaptation Academy, learning how to survive in conditions they once thought impossible. Humans taught them not just to survive, but to thrive in challenging environments. Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this? The high speaker asked quietly. When we first arrived with our demands, Walker shook his head. We didn't want to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to explore it, to help where we could, to push the boundaries of what's possible. Another alert flashed. A mining colony needed emergency supplies. Already, human ships were loading up, preparing to brave conditions that would kill most species. It had become routine now. Wherever there was danger, wherever there was need, humans were the first to respond. The new council meets tomorrow, the high speaker said. With humans as full partners, not subjects. We've learned our lesson about trying to contain species that are different from us. Walker watched as more ships arrived at the station. Human vessels flew alongside delicate alien craft, protecting them, guiding them, helping them. This was humanity's true strength, not their ability to survive anywhere, but their willingness to use that ability to help others. We're not apex predators, Walker said finally. We're apex protectors. And that's a much better thing to be. The high speaker nodded in agreement as they watched the endless stream of ships moving through space. The galaxy had feared humans would become its conquerors. Instead, they had become its guardians, turning their incredible adaptability into a force for peace and progress. The new galactic order wasn't built on fear or control, but on cooperation and mutual respect. And at its heart were the humans, the species that could survive anywhere, adapt to anything, and had chosen to use those abilities not to dominate, but to defend.